Hello and welcome to Uzreport World News, and my name is Bahram Gafarov. President of Uzbekistan Shavkat Mirziyoyev paid a visit to the Fergana region on Thursday. His trip started off with a viticulture cooperative in Al-Tariq region, where varieties of grapes were planted and drip irrigation system was introduced.
The total area of the viticulture cooperative is about 130 hectares. Of these, 40 hectares are vineyards, 90 hectares are intensive orchards. It also has a freezing warehouse with a capacity of 2,000 tons cargo equipment. Despite the low yield compared to other crops, cotton and wheat were grown in large quantities on 6 hectares. During his visit, Mirziyoyev also touched upon the youth employment issues. If today we create a source of income for young people, teach them how to work, in 2-3 years they will not depend on anyone. They will have a bank account, they will get a house, live well, raise their children well. The president instructed to employ 200,000 young people through the allocation of land plots to them. There was also a presentation of agricultural products to be implemented in the region. During his visit to Fergana region, Mirziyoyev expressed his strong support towards assiduous journalists. Do not stop delivering justice. Don't be afraid. We will not deviate from these paths. If you advocate justice, write the truth, the leaders may hate you now, but eventually they will start working. This will lead to systematic work. I wish you the best in your accomplishments, the president said. Mirziyoyev's tour continued visiting the International Center of Ceramics, built in Rishton district. There are 20 two-story houses, a museum of the history of Rishton, and a banking services center. Workshops and shops are located on the first floors of the houses, and the families of the craftsmen live on the second floors. The president visited the workshops, inspected the products, had a warm conversation with the craftsmen, and instructed to support the artisans. During his trip, Mirziyoyev also visited Fergana Stone Paper Enterprise, which produces paper from stone. The company uses Chinese technology. The annual capacity is 9,000 tons. Stone paper has a number of advantages. The production of pulp paper consumes a huge amount of water, whereas no water is needed to produce paper from stone. Secondly, such paper has higher strength and durability. It is resistant to moisture and dirt. Therefore, stone paper is convenient to use in printing, packaging, and wallpaper production. It is in high demand in the foreign market. Paper production is one of the ancient directions of our handicraft. There was a time when Samarkand paper was famous all over the world. This enterprise is intended to restore the historical traditions at the industrial level, Shavkat Mirziyoyev said.
Fly Egypt has received a permission to operate regular flights to Uzbekistan, the press service of Transport Ministry said on Thursday. On the basis of agreement on air services signed between the governments of Uzbekistan and Egypt, the UZ Aviation Agency issued Fly Egypt permission for regular flights on the routes Cairo-Tashkent-Cairo and Sharm el-Sheikh, Tashkent-Sharm el-Sheikh. The flights will be operated on Boeing 737 aircraft. The Safe Tourism Coordination Department of Interior Ministry of Uzbekistan launched a call center 1173, the State Tourism Committee reported. The call center will receive calls from tourists and will provide necessary assistance from police. The center is connected to duty stations in Tashkent, Bukhara, Samarkand, Surkhandarya, Kashkadarya, Khorizm regions. The calls are responded by specialists fluent in Uzbek, Russian, and English. Poland imported $62.7 million worth of Uzbekistan-made textile products in 2020, up 54% year-on-year, with Textile Prom reported with reference to Uzbek ambassador in Poland. Ready-made garment accounts for the lion's share of exports at 60%.
2 textile trading houses started operating in the city of Lodz. The Uzbek ambassador in Poland said that Uzbek textile products are to be showcased on the textile wholesale market GD International in Warsaw this year. Last year, Uzbekistan exported $1.9 billion worth of textile products. to 17 foreign countries. This is $295.3 million more than in 2019. Among the main exporters of Uzbekistan, Russia comes the first with $655.5 million, followed by China with $438.2 million, Kyrgyzstan $283.9 million, Turkey $206.1 million. The rest are Poland, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Ukraine, and Iran.
The Bukhara region saw the blast of a yet-to-finish 8-story building. No deaths have been recorded, but 12 people were hospitalized on the spot. My colleague has the details.
As the aftermath of the deadly explosion, 2 workers are now suffering severe bodily injuries. Regardless of the checks at the assembly, there was no gas pipeline barrier in the apartment where the flash occurred. The leaking gas was mixed with the air and there was an explosion. A criminal case has already been opened to the White Group Trading, responsible to the construction of the facility.
It's estimated the world faces as many as 4,000 COVID-19 variants, and it's prompting a race to improve vaccines, according to researchers in Britain on Thursday. The announcement comes as the UK has launched a world-first trial that has begun to explore the mixing of different vaccine doses. Thousands of variants have been documented as the virus mutates, including the so-called British, South African and Brazilian variants, which appear to spread more swiftly than others. In an effort to keep ahead of these mutations, this trial aims to assess the immune responses generated if vaccine doses from Pfizer and AstraZeneca are combined in a 2-shot schedule. Matthew Snape, an Oxford vaccinologist, is leading the trial.
And there's plenty of precedents for these kind of mixed schedules in other disease areas such as Ebola and other licensed vaccines, even against HPV and hepatitis B as well. So this isn't that different in its idea. And as I say, it can be really beneficial when it comes to actually rolling out a vaccine.
The trial will examine the immune responses of an initial dose of Pfizer vaccine, followed by a booster of AstraZeneca's, as well as vice versa, with intervals of 4 and 12 weeks. The team behind the trial are hopeful initial data on immune responses will start to be available from around June.
Vaccine passports, a ticket to a life of foreign travel, nightlife and leisure, or a path to social exclusion. Governments and developers around the world are exploring whether vaccine passports, to identify those inoculated against the coronavirus, could help to reopen their economies. But those developing the technologies are urging lawmakers to think seriously about overcoming the obstacles to their use. Biometrics company iProve, together with cybersecurity firm Mvine, received UK government funding to develop a vaccine pass that is now being tested within Britain's National Health Service. Andrew Budd is iProve's founder and chief executive.
I think there are huge issues. I mean, there are issues of discrimination, there are issues of two classes, there are issues of privilege, there are ageist issues, because it's likely older people, such as myself, will get the vaccines before younger people, which means that older people will have access to services and capabilities that young people are excluded from.
Here in Manchester, Northern England, some 420,000 people are employed in the nighttime economy. Event organisers say that while socially distanced concerts and events have kept people in work, they aren't financially viable in the long run. Sacha Lord is co-founder of the city's Parklife Music Festival. He says swiftly checking someone's level of protection would be a game changer.
You know, a gig isn't a gig, or a festival is not a festival unless you stood shoulder to shoulder with your friends. You're on the dance floor, you can't create the atmosphere. So those social distance gigs, they served a purpose, they kept people in jobs, but we have to look to get back to normal.
iProve's Bud points out that vaccine certificates are being rolled out in some countries. And in the United States, private sector health passes have been used to admit people to sports events. It's the developer's job to work out the technicalities, he says. Conversations about the political and social issues can't wait.
This is going to happen. And the question is, how should it be regulated? How should it be regulated? What limits should be placed on it? What are the boundaries of social acceptability? I think those are real questions for civil society and for the government.
former President Donald Trump was invited Thursday to testify under oath before Congress, either before or during his second impeachment trial due to begin next week. Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives who will prosecute Trump sent a letter to him and his lawyers requesting Trump testify about his conduct before hundreds of his supporters launched a deadly Capitol Hill attack on January 6th. Jason Miller, a Trump advisor, told Reuters the ex-president, quote, will not testify in an unconstitutional proceeding. And Trump's legal team called the request a, quote, public relations stunt. Trump was impeached last month by the House on one charge of inciting insurrection during a fiery speech in which he urged his followers to fight his election defeat.
You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
His supporters then stormed the Capitol, clashed with police, and sent lawmakers and the vice president to flee for safety. 5 died, including a Capitol police officer. Trump's attorneys this week rejected the impeachment charge, contending that he, quote, fully and faithfully executed his duties as president, and that the Senate does not have the authority to hear the case because Trump has already left office and cannot be removed. Many constitutional scholars disagree. Trump will be the first U.S. president in history to twice face an impeachment trial.
In the search for clues to the origins of COVID-19, China's bat caves need exploring to chase genetic elements of the virus. That's the recommendation from a member of the World Health Organization-led team investigating the virus in the Chinese city of Wuhan. Peter Daszak, a zoologist and animal disease expert, said the team in Wuhan had been receiving new information about how the virus led to a pandemic. He said there was no evidence to suggest it emerged from a lab, but they were examining the potential link to bats.
How did a virus get from bats in some other part of China or Southeast Asia into Wuhan? And that's the real work that we're doing here. We're trying to trace back from the first cases back to an animal reservoir. And that's a much more convoluted path. And that may have happened over a period of, a number of months or even years. So it is a process. That sort of work to find the likely bat source is important, because if you can find the sources of these lethal viruses, then you can reduce the contact with those animals and reduce the behaviours that put us at risk and prevent pandemics.
One scenario being scrutinised more closely by the team is the possibility that the virus could have been circulating long before it was first identified in Wuhan at the end of 2019. The investigators have so far visited hospitals, research facilities and the seafood market where the first outbreak was identified.
An Iranian diplomat accused of planning to bomb a meeting of an exiled opposition group in France in 2018 was sentenced to 20 years in prison on Thursday. Prosecution lawyers from Belgium and other civil parties said Vienna-based diplomat Asadollah Assadi was guilty of attempted terrorism after a foiled plot to bomb a rally of the National Council of Resistance of Iran near Paris in June 2018. It brings to an end the first trial of an Iranian official for suspected terrorism offences in Europe since Iran's 1979 revolution. Lawyer for the prosecution, Georges-Henri Bouthier, spoke to reporters outside the court in Antwerp after the verdict.
A diplomat can't just do anything. He has an immunity of function, not an immunity for criminal and terrorist acts he's committed. The second fundamental thing is to recognize the responsibility of the Iranian state. The Iranian state is considered responsible. It's not the cause, but it's responsible for its services, implicated in this tribunal in what could have been carnage of several thousand people that could have been killed.
No media were allowed into the heavily guarded courtroom, where 3 other Iranians were sentenced to 15, 17 and 18 years respectively for their roles as accomplices. In March, he warned authorities of possible retaliation by unidentified groups if he is found guilty, according to a police document obtained by Reuters. The Islamic Republic has repeatedly denied involvement in the foiled plot, saying that Assadi's diplomatic immunity had been violated in a Western trap.
A shocking killing of an outspoken Hezbollah critic in southern Lebanon, one that the country's caretaker interior minister is calling an assassination. Lokman Slim, a Shiite publisher who was critical of the Iran-backed group, was found shot dead in his car. A judge following the case said his body had 4 bullets in the head and 1 in the back, while a security source said his phone was found earlier on the side of a road. It's the first such killing of a known activist in years. At the family home in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where Shiite Hezbollah has a dominant presence, his sister Rasha said he had not spoken of any recent threats and tried to keep his family from worrying. In the past, he said he had received death threats.
Everyone loves him. Let them tell you how much they love him. We are losing. We are going backwards. We are setting a bad example for the world on how we deal with each other, as in, if I don't like you, I kill you. Killing is the only language they are fluent in. This is bad.
Slim, who ran a research centre and made films, was a leading Shiite voice who spoke against what he saw as Hezbollah's intimidation tactics. He accused the group of intolerance of other political views. In a recent TV interview, Slim said he believed Hezbollah had a role in the deadly port blast that ripped through Beirut in August. Supporters of Hezbollah sometimes called him an embassy Shiite, accusing him of being a tool of the US. Hezbollah did not immediately respond to request for comment.
The Dow and S&P 500 extended their rally to a 4th straight day Thursday. A batch of upbeat earnings reports, a drop in weekly jobless claims, and hopes of further progress on President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion pandemic relief package boosted the market. Crossmark Global Investments chief investment strategist Victoria Fernandez said low rates and strong earnings will keep driving stocks north.
Because we're in the middle of earnings season, people can focus on that and the guidance that they're getting from those companies, which has tended to be pretty positive right now. So you take that along with the Federal Reserve that said they're going to continue to be accommodative for at least the next year. And I think you've got an equity market that continues to be risk on.
That sentiment helped propel the 3 major indexes up more than 1% Thursday. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ closed at record highs. PayPal and eBay were among the S&P's top gainers. The surge in online holiday shopping from stay-at-home customers helped quarterly earnings from the payment platform and its former parent top analysts' estimates. Qualcomm shares dropped almost 9%. The chipmaker said supply constraints that have hurt the industry were hampering its sales growth. Video game retailer GameStop plummeted 42%, and cinema operator AMC Entertainment slid 21% after Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said she and regulators need to understand deeply the trading frenzy that has rattled Wall Street. The government releases its closely watched employment report Friday. Economists expect an increase of 50,000 jobs in January.
Then he came and said, I have to kill. Of mine.
Louis Lacour was just 7 years old when Uganda's Lord's Resistance Army killed his family and kidnapped him to use as a child soldier. On Thursday, the commander responsible, Dominic Ongwen, was convicted at the International Criminal Court on 61 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. But Lacour believes Ongwen, himself conscripted as a child soldier, should be forgiven.
He was being adopted and he was being tortured. The family members were being killed, like the parents. So he has all the trauma on his mind. That's why he was doing it.
In 2003, LRA rebels murdered Lacour's parents and raped and killed one of his sisters. Ongwen, by then a top commander, was in charge of the operation. Lacour and his other 2 sisters were marched into the bush. When one sister became tired, she was shot. Lacour was forced to kill his other sister. She was only 3.
When I refused, they beat me, they tortured me, and they said they were going to kill me if I did not do it. So I have no option but to do it.
After 8 months, he escaped, but his nightmare is one that echoes across tens of thousands of other children kidnapped and forced to become fighters and sex slaves.
Raping women, that was their job, and killing people.
Sylvia Nakut was also abducted by the group, led by fugitive warlord Joseph Kony. She says she was raped by more than 100 men and gave birth to a son she doesn't know if she will ever see. But she too thinks Ongwen should not have been convicted.
It's really sad that some of the people who are paying Kony's consequences, like the crimes he did, are the people like Ongwen was not supposed to be convicted, to me, although I'm a victim.
Ongwen's verdict shines an uncomfortable spotlight on the question of culpability in a society still deeply traumatised by the militia, which rampaged through northern Uganda from 1987 to 2006, but has in recent years been largely wiped out. For the International Criminal Court, Ongwen's guilt has been established beyond reasonable doubt, and the court ruled he had committed atrocities of his own free will. It also noted that Kony has evaded justice for more than 15 years, and called on countries to help secure his arrest.
So far, these were the latest news for today. Goodbye, take care.